Hello, friends. Welcome to 3ABN Today live.
Yeah.
It is Thursday night here in West Frankfurt at the 3ABN Production Center.
Yes.
And my name is Angela Lomacang. If you're in the car, I'm saying that because you don't know who's speaking, or you may know my voice.
Right.
And with me is my lovely wife, Angela Lomacang. Always good to have you on my right side, honey.
Always good to be here.
Yeah.
Aren't we blessed?
We are to be able to be a part of a network
Yes.
that is carrying the gospel in various facets. Tonight,
Yes.
we're going to see how the gospel is not just biblical, but the gospel is also spiritual, physical, social, and mental.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I want to talk to you about today, which is going to be covered for the next 2 hours, if you want some encouraging information about how you can activate your life and be different physically and spiritually, this is the program, because we're going to talk about a program called Fast 8. I'll let our guests tell you about Fast 8.
Fast 8.
And we'll find out what that means. Why 8?
Yeah.
We'll find out what that means in a moment. But in America, there are issues, health issues.
Yes, they are.
It's around the world, but America is in trouble, honey.
Big trouble. It's worse than everywhere else in the world,
So
isn't it?
we have some statistics we're going to talk about
Yeah.
tonight, which our guests are going to reveal why it's important to look at your life, not only from the scope of your career, but from the scope of your health. What can you do about it? And the good news is you can do something about it. So we want to thank you for that. But we also want to thank you for your prayers and your financial support of the
Amen.
network
Amen.
as we continue going and growing, getting ready for the coming of the Lord.
Yes.
What makes you excited about talking about health?
Oh, there's a lot to do with health. I want to be in health. The Bible talks about being in
prospering and
health.
being in good health.
Prospering and be in good health. And I'm sure you want to be in good health too.
That's right.
You know, health is wealth, isn't it?
And don't assume because you're slim like me that you're in good health. That's also an assumption, because I want to be in better health too.
Yeah.
You may be in good, physically outside you look great, but inside you could be tired and your organs are not functioning correctly. Tonight, I think you get a lot of answers. And the good news is we have the opportunity tonight where you could call in questions. You could send in
yes.
questions.
Not
you
call.
You can email those or
Yeah.
text those in. I'll give the email. That's live@3abn.tv, live@3abn.tv. What's the phone number, honey?
618-228-3975.
That's
you
where
can
you-
text us, right?
That's where
with
you-
questions. You are going to ask questions.
That's
I
right.
know you are.
And nowadays with texting, that's a good thing to do. But before we introduce our guests, we have some music from Stephanie Dawn, and a good friend of ours,
Oh, she's a wonderful
minister of music.
woman. You and her sang a song, Wonderful, Merciful Savior.
That's right, and we've been blessed by that.
Yes, but that's not the song that we're going to be using tonight, that they're going to be singing tonight.
After this song, we'll come back and introduce you to our guests, and then we'll be off and running.
Here we go.
And finding out how you can be in optimum health with Fast 8.
That's right.
Come to me, all who are weary. I'll give you rest. I'll give you rest. Come to me. I'll take your burden. Come to me. I will give you rest. Come to me, all who are weary. I'll give you rest. I'll give you rest. Come to me. give you rest, for I am gentle and humble of heart. Learn of me, and you shall find peace unto your souls. Come to me, you who are weary. I'll give you rest. I'll give you rest. Come to me. I'll take your burden. Come to me. I will give you rest. Come to me, all who are weary. Come to me, I will give you rest. Come to me.
Thank you for that song, Come to Me, which is in fact an answer or response, actually an invitation. Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And everybody needs to have someone to come to. Who better than Jesus?
Amen. Amen.
Yes. Well, honey, why don't you introduce our guests for us tonight?
Sure. Dr. David and Sonja DeRose, welcome.
Good to be with you.
They're both
Good
doctors.
to be here.
That's right.
Both doctors. But you're also pastoring, aren't you?
That's true. We have the privilege of being up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and pastoring up there, and also seeing this ministry, Timeless Healing Insights, grow. So we partner with you on your airwaves, sharing some of the messages that we're presenting from the pulpit in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Wow.
And,
do you only have one church?
One church,
Okay,
correct.
that's good.
Well, with all you do, I think one is sufficient.
Yes.
But for those who may not know you, somebody might be
Yeah.
tuning and say, I don't know who that couple is. Kind of give us a little bit of your background.
And
let them-
family, children.
Sure, sure. So the Lord called me first into ministry in medicine. So I'm a board certified specialist in internal medicine and preventive medicine. And I've had the privilege of working with many ministries here in the United States and partnering with people overseas over the years, doing a lot of really practical ministry. Jesus spent a lot of his time healing.
Yes, he
And it's a
did.
privilege that we have of being involved in that profession. But the Lord has also called me to be a teacher.
Okay.
So I've taught in both secular and Christian college campuses over the years, and also to pastor. So doing a mix of those things, have a lot of gracious people usually working around me who realize you can't do justice to any of those things when you're running in multiple directions, but we're part of the body of Christ and we work as a team.
gifts.
Sonja and I have been together for over 30 years as a team. Sonja, why don't you tell a little bit about our background and our family?
Okay, so I also went to medical school. That's where we met, actually, out in Loma Linda.
Okay.
And we have a family. We have 3 children. They're all grown now. A daughter and 2 sons. And the 2 oldest are married.
Okay.
And the youngest just got engaged, so he'll be getting married in October.
Oh.
And so we minister together, as he mentioned, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I also work part-time still as a physician out in California, actually, in a rural health clinic. That's a clinic, it's a federally funded government clinic for the underserved. So we mainly see people who are on public assistance. And it's a real area of real ministry, being able to work with these people.
So you fly to California?
So I fly out every other month for about a week or so, and then I do telehealth one day plus a week in between, depending on how many people I need to see.
So your lives have been dedicated to spiritual and physical healing
Amen. Amen.
Yes.
decades.
Love that.
It's true. It's true.
You know what I like about it? Every time you're here, you come enthusiastic and ready to just give us some insights,
I love
and we get 2 hours of free medical advice.
It's true. You got to figure it out. Yeah.
Amen.
And for those of you that are watching or listening to the program, that is true. This is the only time you get 2 hours of free medical insights from Doctors DeRose. And so you may want to hit record or invite your
send
family
questions.
members. Or once again, the phone number for those texting questions
Yes,
is?
618-228-3975. Text your questions in for the second hour.
That's right. And whatever the
Or
medical
email.
question may be, or email it live@3abn.tv. That's where you send the email. No phone calls tonight, but we'll be able to take it those 2 methods. And almost everybody has a phone nowadays.
I know.
Which have access to email.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get a little techie here at 3ABN. You know, we're ahead of the curve. That's how you can get in touch with us. But give us a little insight behind Timeless Healing Insights Ministries.
Well, Timeless Healing Insights has been something that's been kind of growing over the course of really a couple of decades, but really just formulated and really has only taken shape in a real concrete way in the last year or so. So it's this whole idea that, you know, Jesus gives us timeless insights, but it's not just spiritual insights, it's for whole person healing. And so as we've looked at the work we've done in teaching and medicine and also in preaching, we realize that these things come together, and the Bible is really filled with information that not only deals with our spiritual health, but deals with those other realms of health. So Timeless Healing Insights is really a preaching show, but we draw in a lot of health information. So the first series that aired on 3ABN and other networks throughout the world was dealing with timeless keys to resilience, looking at things that can help us bounce back, what the Bible has to say about that, and drawing from the medical literature, the psychological literature. We've got some programming coming up on weight loss.
Okay.
That will be airing on 3ABN here shortly. And then we've got programs that are coming up on the Gospel of Mark. We're going to systematically go through the Gospel of Mark and really see how embedded in the Gospel stories are practical healing insights, mental and physical as well as spiritual.
Okay. And a lot of people refer to the book of Luke because Luke was a doctor, but Mark has some insights also.
Mark is fascinating. What's so fascinating to me about the Gospel of Mark is Mark was someone who really was the product of social division, if you think about it. He was instrumental in that first missionary team that went out, Paul and Barnabas, and then division comes to those 2 pioneer gospel missionaries over John Mark. So likely John experienced a lot of criticism, you know, people speaking behind his back. I mean, here's the guy that broke up this powerful missionary team. But as we read about Mark's life, he again is of value to Paul in the closing days of Paul's ministry.
That's right.
He was so close to Peter, and his gospel is just full of things that are so practical when it comes to healing.
And it's in the book, you know, as pastors, it's in a book where, you know, even in early ministry, Paul and Mark didn't get along well. But as Paul got older and wiser, he says, bring Mark, he's profitable for the ministry.
Amen.
That is good. That is good. And also, what are you thinking about?
Oh, I'm excited about today's program. And what is the gist of the program?
Well, the gist actually goes back to kind of a burden that a number of us have, both in medical circles and spiritual circles. One of the conditions that has really been, I would say even in the Christian world, not treated equally, and that is carrying extra weight.
Yes.
And Sonja and I were speaking about it. You know, in ministry, we've seen all kinds of prayer requests, you know, prayer meetings. But as we were talking about it, it's almost unheard of for someone to pray about someone who has struggles with their weight.
Yes.
We did a recent interview. I have a weekly radio show with a leading psychologist in this field. His name is Jason Lillis. And Jason was talking about the stigma in our culture, Sonja, about overweight. Just give us that in a nutshell.
He was saying how people who are overweight are often made fun of, looked down on. People think that, oh, you obviously are doing something wrong. You're you know, it's okay to, he said, people say it's okay to make fun of people or to, you know, criticize them, to just be rude to them because they're overweight.
Yeah, no.
And I was rather shocked when I heard that. I mean, to me, you should be nice to everybody. I don't care what they, you know, look like or act like. We should be nice to them as Christians.
That's right.
But I was really amazed to hear that. And I know a friend of mine was sharing with me. She has struggled with weight over the years and has actually lost like 90 pounds over the last 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
And she was saying how people treat her better now that she's weighs less, even though she's still overweight, but she weighs a lot less than she did. And she said how people treat her not, you know, more respectfully now than they used to. She said she'd just be walking down the street to go for a walk, and people would be, you know, heckling her, making mean comments, you know, just unbelievable to me. I mean, that's not my way of thinking about things, but it's pretty prevalent out there, apparently.
Okay.
Perhaps the craziest part about it, though, as we were talking to Dr. Lillis about this, is that a lot of people think they're helping the person by being critical. This is going to motivate them. You know, they're telling them it's straight. You know,
that was fascinating to me. He shared they actually did a study on that where they showed a video to people who were of normal weight and people who are overweight. And the video was, remind me, it was something about eating.
Actually, it was putting people overweight in a bad light.
That's right. Putting something. They watched this video of overweight people being made fun of or whatever.
Right.
And then afterwards they had a spread of food for these people that watched the video, and the people who were of normal weight ate the same amount they would have at any other time. The people who were overweight ate 3 times the amount of food after watching that video of other overweight people being made fun of.
3 times?
3 times. And I know I've had people tell me too, the same that they're dealing with. They said when people would make fun of me or you know, say, oh, you need to lose weight, it would just drive them to go and eat more.
It's like a boomerang.
Interesting.
Instead of responding affirmatively, they say, well, I'll show you.
It's not the way to help them.
It's a negative response.
Yeah.
And other people say it's, you know, it's a stress response. So many people eat, you know, out of stress. So there's a lot of explanations for it. But this background has really got us saying, well, as a Christian community, what are we doing that's in the way of compassionate care and help for people who are overweight? And that's the background for this Fast 8 program. So it's a new program that we're launching, trying to take a different angle on weight control and actually looking at biblical principles that have a bearing on helping us not just optimize weight, but optimize our health overall. And it's actually a weight loss program where we're not telling people you're going to lose 50 or 100 pounds in a few weeks. Not that anyone would say that. But the point is, if you change your outlook, and the folks in the secular research community, like Jason Lillis, they call this approach to treatment acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT. What they're trying to help people do is to treat themselves, as we would say, as Christians, we're trying to treat other people. And you read through their research, and they're talking about loving kindness, how people should treat themselves with loving kindness. And that's the scariest thing. All these societal things, they get programmed into people who are carrying extra weight, and they start looking in the mirror and saying, why am I so bad? I'm disgusting. I'm no good. And we're trying to change that whole narrative and give people some practical help.
And so one of the questions, I want to bring up the slate very briefly that highlights the program that we're going to talk about tonight, Fast 8, because there's something I want our audience to do to be able to track along with us, to follow along. If you bring that graphic up for me, it'll show us the overall picture. Here it is. If you go to timelesshealinginsights.org, and that's if you're listening, but if you could see it on the television screen, timelesshealinginsights.org, and notice the steps. Sign up for free, the free program handouts, and free virtual program support beginning February 4, 2023. You could download the outline. I did it, so I have it in front of me. We're going to be going along with that. And that'll give you some, not just saying, oh, what did he say? I missed that. He'll say, well, let's look at this particular part of the program. So that's your active outline for the program tonight. We're going to follow along. If you're driving, pull over before you do that. Don't try to download anything while you're driving. But what I'm hearing you say is, they've noticed that this negative shaming, if I could use that term,
It is shaming.
is also done by Christians. Even
Sadly.
Christians have done that.
Unfortunately.
Even in school, kids, they tease them.
This is fascinating, Angela. Kids as young as 5 years of age, when they actually research it, they have a preference for peers that are, quote, thinner. So there's already a prejudice that we're imparting this societally. And then on top of this, our society, our culture that we're in today is really geared to help people gain weight. I mean, it's a real crazy environment. I mean, if you look at, the food industry, if you look at the, accessibility of calories, if you look at all the labor-saving devices, so we don't have to do the work that our forefathers did, right?
Right. And
Like, one of my pet peeves, I've told this to my wife, why would anybody put a motor on a bicycle? Just get a moped or get a scooter. But bicycles, which when I was being raised, it required pedaling. Nowadays, you could buy a bike that has a battery that goes 30 miles or 60 miles. It tends to defeat the purpose. And as you said, a lot of, what do you call it, energy-saving devices?
Or labor-saving.
Labor-saving
energy,
devices,
whatever.
yeah.
But, that's exactly the point. And so really, we're in this environment where the majority of Americans are overweight or obese by about 2/3. And so the issue becomes, this is not abnormal, this is actually normal. So why are we stigmatizing something that our culture is fostering, and why are we giving this messaging? But at the same time, there's physical complications. We see a lot of people in our practices that likely wouldn't be there or wouldn't have the problems to the extent they do if they could even lose a little bit of weight. They don't have to have this magic number. We want to throw out the weight charts.
Right.
We can talk about that in the program if you want, but there's a lot to talk about.
Wow.
why should Christian churches be motivated to help those in the community that have weight issues, challenges?
Well, it's interesting we're talking about this. Let me just turn to my Bible, Isaiah 58. The program is called Fast 8. And John, you kind of set up the stage for this, but the reason we call it Fast 8 is because it's 8 different fasts that have a biblical basis. And those fasts, I should mention this, people think 8 fasts, and it's 8 fasts over 8 weeks. That's what the program's about. And I tell people when I'm introducing, I say, you think, boy, this is going to be really bad. One fast is bad enough. He keeps adding a fast once a week for 8 weeks. I'm going to be eating nothing. No, it doesn't work that way, because in Isaiah 58, what's so fascinating, speaking about fasting, it's not speaking about just what you do or don't do with your diet. Isaiah 58, fascinating. The Jews, they're fasting. Let me just pick it up in Isaiah 58, verse 5. Let's start in verse 3.
Okay.
Why have we fasted, they say, and you've not seen? They're complaining to God. Why have we afflicted our souls and you take no notice? And instead of God then in the rest of this chapter saying, well, here, you needed to leave off more of this, or you needed to eat more of this. No, it has nothing to do with that. He's talking about how what they were doing while they were, quote, fasting, is they were exploiting others. They were mistreating others. So at the heart of Isaiah 58, and this biblical chapter is one of the pinnacle chapters on fasting, is that we've got to be concerned about others. We've got to be ministering to others. And I say, as a Christian church, we have all these people that are suffering with weight-related issues. Our society is fed the shame, the guilt, And as a church, we have something to say about it. So why don't we say something? And we've made it really easy. It's a virtual program. We're launching it this weekend. Anybody can jump on. No one's got to see you. Doesn't matter whether you're 600 pounds, like some of my patients. I've worked with people over 600 pounds. I can come into churches and say, you're all thin. I can tell by looking at you. None of you, even tips the scale at, 500. I can eyeball it and say that. But it's just a message that I think the Christian church needs to embrace and try to support people on this journey.
I know, because if you look at verses 4 and 5, it talks about, it just mentions fasting in a way. So you're going to break down those 8 as we go along.
But as a church, we have the health message, but yet we have so many overweight people, including me. But there's so many overweight people, obese, I would say.
But here's the first place to start. And remember, I mentioned throwing out the the body composition charts, throwing out the you're this tall, you're supposed to weigh this amount. And the reason I say that is Sonja and I have worked with so many people over the years. Someone can be doing great. I mean, they may have lost 100 pounds, 200 pounds. And we've had people who've lost lots of weight, and they may still be, quote, overweight. If we put these arbitrary ideas on what you have to weigh up, it's just unattainable for some people. One of the things we've been looking at recently, talk a little bit about some of the research on prenatal influences, just how staggering that is.
Yeah, that is amazing how they've done research that shows that when your mother was pregnant with you, for instance, if she had diabetes or gestational diabetes, that predisposes the baby, actually predetermines basically that the baby is going to have weight issues when they get older, because and some of the background of why that is, if someone has diabetes, as you well know, their blood sugar levels tend to be higher, right? So the sugar in the blood passes through the placenta into the baby. So the baby's blood is getting high blood sugar as well. But insulin from the mother cannot pass through the placenta into the baby. And so the baby's own pancreas has to overwork, make more insulin to take care of the blood sugar that the baby's being exposed to. And that predisposes the baby actually to being overweight later in life.
Wow.
Wasn't it like in the teen years? I mean, it was some huge percentage.
Yeah, it's like the difference between normal weight
and up to 35, like BMI of up to 35 instead of normal 25 or something. It's just amazing the influences this has. And then the other, on the flip side, babies who are very small, too small for their gestational age, born very tiny, not because of maybe their parents were very petite and they're just, genetically small, but because of lack of good nutrition when the mother's pregnant. The babies who survive, they also will tend to be overweight and they think it has to do with a thrifty gene, so that when the baby's, when the fetus is being exposed to malnutrition, if they have this thrifty gene that makes their body conserve energy and store energy better, then when they are older, they tend to be overweight. So it's pretty crazy.
So they may even be a small weight in the mother's womb in developing.
Too small,
Too small, but then it boomerangs the other
predisposes them
direction.
to being overweight.
And the whole reason for talking about all this is, what did you have to do with life in your mother's womb?
True.
And it reminds me of John 9. We know that story where the disciples, they see this guy, he was blind from birth.
Okay.
And just like our culture, we tend to blame the victims.
True.
Okay, they were doing the same thing. They said, who sinned? Was it this guy or his parents, his mother? And Jesus' answer was neither. God is going to work through this for his glory.
Yeah.
I wish we had the same attitude with weight, that God is going to work through these things for his glory. And it doesn't mean at the end of the day that everyone's going to look the same.
I like that. I want to bring that up because we were reading through your wonderful outline.
Beautiful.
And I was thinking, wow, this is great sermon material. But isn't this program on health? And I get the connection now, and I saw that in there, how you outlined, it says, we tend to blame people for their condition when the Lord right away says it wasn't his fault, it wasn't his parents' fault.
No.
But that the glory of God might be revealed.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing you say then, let me make the connection here. This is my pastor's mind coming in now. You're saying that people are sometimes in a predisposed position, but it's not an impossibility for God. I could do some amazing things in this situation.
Amen.
Okay, is that what I'm?
Yeah, definitely. And again, but the outcome, the end point is not necessarily what we would like. So let me just illustrate it this way. So years ago, I was the medical director of a large hospital-based weight loss program. And I'd see these people do great. I mean, they're losing weight, they're trimming down, but they had some artificial idea of what they should have weighed. Maybe it was what their sister weighed. Maybe it was what they weighed when they were 12. I don't know what it was, but they have this idea that although I'm starting at 300 pounds, I need to get down to 140. And they get down to 180. They've lost 120 pounds.
Yes.
But they can't get rid of those last 40 pounds, and they end up throwing in the towel.
Oh.
They say, well, and people are still telling them, well, yeah, you look good, but if you could just lose, a little bit more weight, you're doing great. Well, they can't.
No.
Because of whatever's,
Right.
going on with their metabolism. What a great weight for them is 180. That's an ideal weight.
Right, I see.
Yeah. And we don't, and as a society, we have trouble with that. And we've told people that's not okay. If you don't look a certain way, that's not okay. And you
Wow.
can be healthy and fit and decrease all your risk of disease. And instead, these people were kicking them off to the side of the road, and they're getting discouraged and giving up.
It's like my brother. He went on this weight loss program on television that they offer, packaged meals and everything. And he lost a good, 40 pounds. But he said, I need to lose another 20. I said, you
I'm
look
saying,
great.
for what?
For what?
You look great. You don't need to.
You don't need to lose.
No, I think right. That's a
Yeah.
very good point.
Yeah, and he did, because he looked a little too thin. But he looked, he wanted to lose more. But your body says, no, that's enough.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, for his age, he's 60 plus years old. I mean, so I see what you're saying.
But what I also hear you saying, and I think this is something that I want the viewers and listeners to grab, don't allow society to determine the optimal for your own life.
Yes.
And that's usually, in movies and the internet and the billboards and just society, period. We tend to
Exactly.
press people into a predetermined mold and say, oh, yeah, almost there, not quite. I'll let you know when you get there. And then we have these charts. Because I've seen, you mentioned BMI, body mass index. Is that the proper word?
Correct.
I've seen these charts, and they said that from country to country, BMI varies. So the question is it something that one country is genetically exposed to that another one isn't? Or is the body different? Why do we have these variables? I don't know if that's something you looked into.
I mean, it's an interesting question, and it brings back another point, and that is not only are there these early life history factors, both intrauterine and later, but also there's genetic factors. There's body frame factors. There's societal factors. I mean, the kind of ethnic differences in foods, the type of dietary that a society eats. So all of these things are determinants of our weight, and many of these determinants are not based on personal choice. Okay. So we can't just look at someone's size and say, you're not a good Christian, you're not using good willpower. Let me mention one other thing, Angie, because this relates to your question. Yeah. I've had multiple people who wanted to be involved in health ministry in their communities, in their societies. They've come to me and they've said, well, I can't do this because I weigh too much. And my message has always been, just go ahead and do it.
Right.
Okay? Because the problem is, none of us are ever going to be perfect in every respect,
True.
okay? So if we have a desire to minister, and part of ministry, sometimes the Lord has us on that journey to bring other people with us and to bless us as well.
I like that. Wow. Tell us about this online program called Fast 8. What is that?
Well,
That's an interesting one. Interesting title, Fast 8.
so it's an 8-week program involving 8 different fasts. And as we mentioned earlier, it's not just that we're going to say, well, each week you got to eat less and less,
Right.
fast more from this and this and this.
Yeah.
Should we go through? So the first one is actually, the first fast is what we call the leaf, stem, and flower fast. And there's another option we'll talk about as well. But first of all, we want to describe what leaf, stem, and flowers vegetables are. So leaf flower, leaf vegetables, anything that's a leaf. Spinach, collards, kale, cabbage, lettuce, anything like that.
Yeah.
Stem vegetables, celery, broccoli, of course, would be a stem and a flower vegetable. Asparagus, and then flower, of course, like broccoli, cauliflower, that kind of thing. So
Do you fast from that?
no, those vegetables are some of the highest density nutrition-wise with the lowest calories. Very, very healthy for you. And we're encouraging people to at least one meal of each day
I like that.
to start their meal with at least one serving of the leaf stem or
easy.
flower vegetable.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is this program is designed so that no one fails the program.
Yeah.
So we talk about what a serving is. Now you can look online, on a serving. Some people say as a cup of this
Right.
vegetable or a half cup or some. I even saw one source that said 2 cups. But we say a serving is whatever you decide it to be. So if you want to just take a bite of celery and that's going to be your serving. Now someone laughs. They say, well, what kind of difference is that going to make? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a program where people it's not onerous. It's not so hard that you're going to fail. And we're working with people, and this is the first thing that we introduced the first week, is this using this leaf stem or flower fast. We give several other options if people say, I just can't eat vegetables. There's some other options that we've got for them. But everybody can do something. We say the only people that are not successful are the ones who drop out of the 8-week program.
Okay.
We just want people to stick with the program.
I'm in
and We're
it.
going to work with them. And you signed up.
I
So
signed
we're
up a
looking
couple
forward to you
days
being
ago.
one of our success stories.
And I like what you said also about what I read. You can fast from oil, greasy foods, fried foods, right?
That comes up later on.
Oh, that's later on.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I love
so
it.
what Dr. Sonja just mentioned, and if you downloaded the program, I'm looking at the table here. It is outlined in the 8 sections. Table 1, 2023 program overview, and it has a beginning date of program week. So if you look at that, February 5. So this is a live program. Today is February 2nd. So you got 3 more days to start this program.
That's right.
And I like what you just said. The encouraging thing is the only people that don't succeed are those who
Drop out.
drop out. So, I mean, I've talked about lowering my body mass index. You might be surprised. I stepped on the scale once and I thought, so my BMI, I shook the scale. I was angry with it. And I thought, since I stopped being very, very active, I haven't played basketball in a while, which is something I really did, high energy.
Yeah.
And I started getting a little, my suit jacket started getting tight, and my wife said, "I like that," and I said, "I don't like that." She said, "But that shows you're becoming a man." I said, "Well, that's not the man I want to be."
Why are you telling our secrets?
And she said, "I like something to hug," and I said, "Oh, good." But it's funny. So you don't have to be like the world has told you. You don't have to be according to the world standards if you just want to improve yourself.
That's right.
So leaf, stem, and flower fast.
Yes.
If you downloaded that, you see it right in front of you.
And I don't know if we'll haven't mentioned this yet. I'm sure it may come out later, but I just wanted to mention this too. As far as this program, this is introducing several different things that you can choose to do. You may not choose to do, to stick with all 8 of these things for the rest of your life. But it's an introduction. We want you to pick at least 1 or 2 things that you will stay with for the rest of your life. Because optimum weight loss actually comes when we choose a program that we can live with. That it's not just a crash diet that you go on for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever, and then, I can't live with this rest of my life. So you lose weight. But if you don't stay with that, then pretty soon you gain the weight back.
And double.
Whereas this is something, we're wanting you to find lifestyle changes that you can make that you're happy to live with the rest of your life.
I like that.
And then as you work that into your lifestyle and you work okay with that, well, then you may say, hey, you know what? I could do another one of those. And you implement another one in. And it's not a quick fix. It's a lifestyle change. Yes. And over time, that really adds up. And it's something you stick with and can really become successful.
That sounds more sustainable than buying food that's prepackaged. Because you're not going to be eating prepackaged food for the rest of your life.
Definitely.
Okay, leaf stem, and I noticed you had in parenthesis there, herbal jello option.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so for those people that are determined not to eat vegetables, even that mouthful of celery, that bite of celery is too much, we do have an herbal jello option. This is something that we worked with in one of our Adventist lifestyle centers some years ago, and it was using 2 soluble plant fibers, guar gum and psyllium seed husks. I know this is just sounding mouth-watering and delicious to you, but both of these compounds actually help to stabilize blood sugar. We were using it in patients who had diabetes, but it also has a satiety-inducing effect, so it helps you to feel more full. You can eat this at the beginning of a meal instead of the one serving of leaf, stem, and flower vegetables.
If you can't stomach the vegetables.
Or if you just choose to
instead.
you can pick, you can, one day you can have the vegetables, another day you
Yeah.
can have the guar and psyllium jello. We have one recipe in there. There's other recipes that have been used. And my wife is saying, well, we may want to refine that.
I think that recipe may need some tweaking.
This is a work in progress. So
Okay.
It
we've
is.
worked with weight management issues for over 30 years, but we've never used this particular approach. So it's a new approach, this 8 fasting model.
Okay.
And so we've been inviting people to join this program that starts the weekend of February 4th and 5th. That's this coming weekend.
Yes.
And we're doing a live video presentation Saturday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And folks can jump on for that program. It's all the information is right there through that Timeless Healing Insights website. And then also, handout, we're going to continue to update. So as we
Okay.
go through it, we're trying to get your feedback. People going through the program and saying, well, this is not clear. My wife was looking at some of it saying, you know, if we got this, is this the best recipe? Don't you have a better recipe than this one? So yeah, I got another one too. So anyway, it's interactive, and we're rolling this out both for people who need it, but also because we want to work together with people, go on this journey together.
Now,
What's the cost?
Free, absolutely free.
Totally free.
oh, I like that.
Yeah,
So can I put that on my credit card?
you can. Actually, speaking of your credit card, so Timeless Healing Insights, we're geared to putting out free resources, but you guys know in a ministry, we do appreciate people who support us, because we didn't have
Exactly.
people who were taking out
Amen.
their credit cards and making
Yes.
donations to Timeless Healing Insights. I wouldn't be here, honestly. So, but it's free. We don't
Sure.
expect anything, but we are glad that people are partnering with us financially.
Amen. And we're going to encourage that before the program is done. But just before you ask the question, I came up with the thought that I had it on my mind a moment ago. Yeah,
Okay.
the program, the Fast 8. Why did you choose 8 and not 9 or not 7?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question. So I was kidding with my wife here. The last time we were on, we were talking about we've got a number of 30-day programs out. So those are about 4-week programs. And I said, well, now this is an 8-week program. Say the next time they call us up, they might get worried that we're going to come out with a 16-week program. We just
Okay.
keep doubling it. No, but the reason for 8 weeks, we've done many programs over the years, community programs. And for many people, it seems like the magic program length is somewhere between 4 and 8 weeks.
Okay.
As far as what you can get people to commit to
Right.
and say, this is a definable block of time. It's not like forever,
Yeah.
but I could do
I
this.
like
But it's
that.
got to be long enough to make some significant progress. And 4-week programs, we use intensive programs for diabetes, for high blood pressure. With weight loss and some of the things that we're exploring, like Sonja said, we're wanting to expose people to a number of different fasting techniques over a period of time, and then say, at the end of 8 weeks, which of these things can you stick with? We want you to try to stick with at least 1 or 2. That's the goal.
You want to add anything to that, Dr. Sonja?
Just actually from an experience of someone that we know who came to you, David, and is asking advice on lifestyle and weight loss and everything, and they had previously tried going on a total vegan diet from just like the regular American diet, just totally jumping in full force, but not. When people do that, you may be successful for a while, but unless you have support and a lot of help, oftentimes people don't stick with it because it's too overwhelming.
Yeah.
There's too many changes and they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And she said, she's told me this several times, she said, your husband told me, don't try to be vegan. Don't be vegan. Just make one change that you can stick with for the rest of your life and start there.
I like
And
that.
she's like, I can do that.
Yes.
And so she picked one thing that she could decide to live with the rest of her life. For her, she said it was switching from cow's milk to a plant-based milk.
Yeah.
And she said, I can do that. And she did that, and then eventually she started making other changes. Once that was part of her lifestyle, she said, oh, I could do something else. And, and today she's essentially totally plant-based and has lost, like I said, like 90 pounds in the last,
my.
A little over 2 years. So
Wonderful. It's almost like the Daniel diet, huh?
Well, the Daniel diet is one of the fasts in this program. So we do have the Daniel fast, and so different again. But these are options. So someone may not be ready for a Daniel fast.
Okay.
We give them. This is the last fast that we introduce in the program. So this is a total plant-based diet, the Daniel fast, just water and plant-based diet. Some folks are not ready for it, so we say at least do the Daniel fast that Daniel did all his life. And some Christians say, what was the Daniel fast he did all his life? He excluded the unclean foods,
Yes,
what the
he
Bible
did.
calls unclean foods. So we talk about that in the program. So that's a little bit more manageable for folks. We don't take away their red meat and some of their fish and things like that.
Right.
Some people, they get mad. They say, DeRose, why are you doing this? This is not the ideal diet. You have to meet people where they're at.
True.
And we're trying to help people do things like Sonja said, that they can embrace and stick with, and they may end up at the very place you or I think they should have been at all along, but they may not, and that's okay. It's a journey.
Yeah, it is. But can fasting keep the weight off?
It can. Fasting, we're talking about not fasting that you're doing some kind of extreme caloric restriction that you can't stick with for the rest of your life. We're talking about fasting techniques that you can do long term. So all these 8 fasting techniques can actually be done long term. We're not doing, I've done things with water only fast and all.
Yeah.
This fasting regimen doesn't use that. We don't use any of those medically supervised fasts or things. We're looking at fasting techniques that you can use long term. That's what all these 8 fasts are.
What about someone with diabetes? Can they?
That is one of the caveats, right, Sonja?
yes, especially with any kind of health issue, diabetes is a good example. We encourage you to work with your physician anytime you're making any significant lifestyle changes, because when you do that, it's going to affect your blood sugar levels, and you'll need to work with your physician to perhaps change your medication dosages, et cetera.
Now, before we go to the next question or the next week, I want to remind our viewers you can send your questions in. You can email those to live@3abn.tv or text them to 618-228-3975. Send your medical questions. It may be about what you've heard so far, week 1. And we have 7 more weeks to cover, which I know we're going to cover in the, not in this first hour, but definitely in the second hour. But I'm really excited about the fact that anybody can be involved in the fasting. I just want to point this out. You mean fasting, are you recommending between meals?
That is one of the fasts. Sonja, when do we roll that out?
That's actually fast number, that one's fast number 2.
Okay.
Well, no, I take that back. That's fast. That's coming later. Fast number 2 is, I don't know if we want to go in order or whatever, but fasting
at the end.
At the end of the yes. So fast number 2 is fasting at the. It says fasting at the end of your meals, but what it's talking about is not overeating. So quitting when you have had enough, rather than continuing to sit there and eat a little nibble,
Yeah.
Which is easy to do, especially if you're mindlessly eating. And with, if say you're watching something, and you just continue to sit there and eat, and before you realize it, you've eaten way too much, and you feel, I ate too much. That's not healthy, and of course, it's adding extra calories that you don't need. Yeah. So being conscious of what you're eating, being aware of when you've had enough. Some of the things that can help with that, one is to not eat too fast, because if we inhale our food, so to speak, it's easy to eat way too many calories before we realize that we're even full. So that's one thing that can help. And the other thing that can make a big difference is if we still stay well hydrated. If you're drinking enough water between meals, it helps you not to overeat at meals, because your body misinterprets thirst as hunger. So if you're dehydrated, you will tend to eat more.
I want to grab that. Okay, if you're not hydrated enough,
Remember that.
your body tends to interpret that as your hunger.
As hunger.
I need to drink more water.
What have I been telling you?
You guys are not supposed to hear that conversation.
Always tell them water, honey. Did you drink your water?
You know, water always tastes good when I'm on a 3 a.m. program. Maybe I should be on the set more to drink more. Just kidding with that. But no, really, you don't think about it until it's available.
Lemon in it.
Because see, when we're sitting on the set, just kind of give you a program faux pas here that it is. That's my terminology. I can't get up and walk over to the refrigerator and pick up juice or a soda.
Yes.
Or some lemonade or something like that. So it tends to just satisfy when it's right in front of us.
I want you to finish that one.
I'm going to finish that.
And that's why we recommend, at least we always try to practice this, if we're going out away from home, we take water with us. Because you can't get enough water to satisfy your thirst from an ice cold drinking fountain. And furthermore, it usually doesn't taste good because it's chlorinated water. So get filtered water, have a filter in your house, or get the reverse osmosis refills from Walmart or whatever. A lot of Walmart stores have the RO filter stations where you can get it very reasonably. And take your water with you so that you can get it, stay well hydrated.
You know, so what is the Bible basis for fasting? When we talk about fasting, there's so many ways you could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's multiple Bible rationale for fasting. We've mentioned the Daniel fast. That's Daniel chapter 1.
Yes.
So in Daniel chapter 1, most Bible students know the background. I mean, Daniel and his friends are taken captive to Babylon, and they're basically put into a situation where they are offered the so-called best food that can be offered. It's food from the king's table, right? But Daniel realizes that this is not the best diet. He's been enlightened by God.
Right.
And so he says, I'm not going to eat this food. And he tactfully appeals to get a different diet, and that diet has been identified as the first clinical trial, dietary clinical trial in history. There's a debate in the New England Journal of Medicine, one of the premier medical journals years ago, talking about what was the first clinical trial, and these experts came to the conclusion it was Daniel chapter 1.
What?
Where Daniel went on this plant-based diet and water, didn't have the wine and the fine delicacies of the king of Babylon, and at the end of those 10 days, his health was superior. That was the assessment.
Wow.
So, so there's all kinds of things that lay the foundation for fasting, and there's other scriptures that we sometimes go through in Proverbs and other places, speaking about, I would put it this way, the basic message that we're emphasizing is a message of true temperance. We're talking with people about this whole idea of avoiding things that are harmful and doing things that are good in moderation. And I tell them the good news is God has promised us as one of the gifts of the Spirit in Galatians 5 that temperance is one of those gifts. So it's not like we're calling you to do something that God hasn't already provided to give you success in.
Temperance.
I like that. I mean, I'm thinking about it. That's a really good application, the Daniel diet, and he just did it for 10 days.
That's right.
Right.
And it was another low-cost program.
That's right.
Well, if I do this for 10 days and see how it's going, I think I could keep going for the rest of the time, right?
Yes, and Daniel did too. I mean, he didn't
stop.
He didn't stop after 10 days.
No, he just continued.
But they could see the difference in 10 days.
Right.
So
Vera.
We didn't get the rest of the story because the Bible doesn't include that, but I could imagine some of the other people in the court said, could you give us what he had? Because they are very wise. They were smarter, healthier looking, fairer, and when the Bible says fatter in the King James Version, healthier looking. They just look radiant, and they were wiser in wisdom. And when you think about it, the way that God communicates to us is he communicates through this organ that he created, which includes our mind. If your blood pressure is too high, I'm talking to two doctors here. What happens when your blood pressure is out of whack?
yeah,
It's not good.
not good.
What happens
Sure.
if you're over toxic.
Toxicities.
Toxicities
I mean,
combined.
no, I mean all these things. So
Huge influences.
we don't make these connections often, but the brain, like you mentioned, that's the medium of communication. You know, the Holy Spirit's speaking to us through our brains,
right.
which are part of our physical body. You know, brains are physical, okay? And so if your blood pressure's high, we know that increases your likelihood of having dementia. Carrying extra weight, especially if combined with diabetes, may increase your risk of dementia fourfold in that range. So we're talking about things that affect the clarity of our mind, which is directly impacting our spiritual walk.
That is interesting. I mean, I tell you, we've covered the leaf, stem, and flower.
Oh, yeah.
And that's week 1. I'm noticing for week 1.
Quick, I have a quick question. When it says fast at the end of your meals, no snacks, huh?
Well, we
Well,
get to that a little bit
okay, later.
Fast, that was where we, maybe we need to reword that one, but that's where we're thinking of not overeating, being careful not to continue to eat after you've had enough at the meal.
Okay, what
Not
about
to overeat. But
okay.
then the next week is the fasting
next-
from
okay,
snacking.
Okay, I
And
like
that, yes. And that's really important too. It's a really good one to choose perhaps to, if you want to pick one of these things to stick with for your, for the rest of your life.
True.
Snacking between meals, and our whole society is built around food. I mean, you go to a function, there's food. You have a birthday party, there's food.
Everything.
When a little kid falls and skins his knee, mom gives him a piece of candy or something. I mean, it's just ingrained in our society, but unfortunately, it's not a healthy option. Calories add up so quickly. 6 or 7 chips make 100 calories typically.
Wow.
Do you know 100 extra calories a day adds up to 10 pounds in a year?
Wow. Hold on to that thought.
Yeah,
Hold on to that
it's
thought
that
because
time.
we're about to come down to the end of our first hour. But
Yes.
hey, we don't want to kill our chips completely, but we want to get healthy. Don't go away. We have some amazing insights coming back in the second hour.
Yeah.
Timeless healing insights. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the second hour of Timeless Healing Insights with Doctors DeRose. It just kind of combined it together. Dr. David and Sonja DeRose.
Yeah.
Good to have you here.
Yes.
I always look forward to these programs because I go home with a wealth of medical information and I could improve them. Hey, you know what I did the first hour? I finished my water and I have an extra container and before the program
Proud
is
of you,
done,
honey.
I will be so hydrated I won't need any barbecue chips.
Don't say
You
your
didn't hear
weakness. Don't say it.
Thank you for sharing things that we need to hear.
Praise the Lord.
And I like the way you're doing it, and you're making it easy for us, for those of us who are living on the edge of, I can do better. I like the encouragement that you're bringing out. And it's nice, honey.
I'm loving this. It's helping me.
Good, we're glad.
Always wanted to lose weight. I think I've done every weight loss program there is, but this one I think I'm gonna, well, I've succeeded on a few.
You
of them.
have. You've succeeded tremendously.
Yeah.
And but life is a series of adjustments as we go on. You don't just say, well, hey, I did that great 5 years ago. As long as you're alive, I think we could always do something to improve something about us. And I think that's what you're pointing out, the little things, not to just jump into it too quickly.
Exactly.
And we also have questions.
Yeah.
If you want to send some, we have some that have come in already. Shall I give them the phone number? Natalie?
Give the phone number.
If you want to email those, send them to live@3abn.tv. That's live@3abn.tv. Or you can text those to 618-228-3975. And we appreciate the questions. We got some questions.
Yeah.
And
Would you like to hear one
Let's
of
go
them?
for it.
Okay. Here we go. I am an SDA, Seventh-day Adventist, since 1988. I don't eat any fruits, and rarely do I eat vegetables. I weigh 278 pounds, and I'm 5 feet 9 inches. I love sugar. I just cannot lose weight. What kind of fast will help me to lose 75 pounds?
Okay.
Well, that's what the Fast 8 program's about. So,
Yes.
we've talked about some of the components, and we've mentioned this starting the meals
Yes.
with these leaf, stem, and flower vegetables.
that.
So that is definitely one thing, especially someone who doesn't eat many vegetables. They may say, well, that's asking a lot to start with a whole serving. But remember, they can choose what that serving is. If it's a spoonful of spinach, we'll let that count. Now they say, how is that going to make a difference? Again, we're trying to help people start making changes. And it's amazing when you make small changes and stick with them, the power. So we also introduce, as we go through the program, and we've touched on some of this, not eating between meals.
Okay.
And then you touched on, Angie, this other really important one that we're going to ask people when they get to the third week or so of the program to start leaving off the fried foods. And this is a real interesting one. I do a lot of work with indigenous communities, Native Americans in particular, and was really interesting if you look at all that we have from oral history as well as from all the evidence. Native Americans never fried their food prior to European contact.
Wow. I didn't-
Frying foods is a very effective way to expose your body to many things that undermine health. There are many products of high-fat frying that are deleterious, but it's also a very concentrated source of calories. Really interesting study. We put it in our book on high blood pressure. Some of you know our book, 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure Control. That book has a table in Chapter 5, research from Harvard, looking at specific foods. We actually put this in the handout, so we're very glad that we've got a good relationship with the publisher of that book. So since I'm the president of Compass Health and they published the book, we had kind of an in.
right.
We've got some of the graphics in that free handout. This graphic is in there. And if you look at the graphic, it shows the relationship between foods and weight gain. The two foods that were associated with the most weight gain were both vegan foods. Vegan foods.
With weight gain?
That's right.
Oh,
And here's what the two were. French fries and potato chips.
Oh,
Okay, you can have vegan French fries and vegan potato chips.
Vegan sugar.
That's right, vegan sugar. Yeah. And so what we're saying is when you get to that third week, what we're asking people to do for the rest of the 5 weeks of the program, as we roll out these fasts over the 8 weeks, we say try to stick with these things as best you can. Remember, you can't fail. You
True.
say, well, I'm eating French fries at every meal, 3 meals a day, well, just cut down then, okay?
Yeah.
But we'd love to see you leave off those fried foods. That's the challenge. That can make a huge difference as far as the scale.
what about an air fryer? What do you think of using an air fryer?
Definitely a much better choice. Of course, depending on what you put in it to air fry. I mean, if you're eating a lot of things that already come, say, frozen, ready to fry,
Right.
like say tater tots or something where they're already loaded with oil. So they're very high calorie. You're still going to be getting a lot of calories. So it depends on what you're using, but it's definitely a much better option than frying in oil because you're getting less of the oil substitutes. Of the oil calories actually. So.
Okay, here's another question. If someone has a sensitivity to soy, especially tofu and nightshades, you have to explain what nightshades is there a way to remedy this? Thanks, Jasmine from Illinois. Thanks, Jasmine.
Well, so let's talk about the nightshade family first of all. So the nightshade family includes things like tomatoes and eggplant and
Potatoes?
peppers,
Never heard about that
potatoes,
before.
yes.
Where about
Even tobacco is in the nightshade family.
Tobacco.
Why do they call it nightshades?
It's the family.
The family of
Yes, Solanaceae, I believe, is the
Solanaceae
Latin.
or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's this grouping of foods, and some people do have sensitivity to it. In our experience, if someone really has a true allergy to things, often they do have to leave those things out. When we use the term sensitivity, it's a little bit grayer, but we often work with people who can't, whether it's a gluten sensitivity, whether it's a nightshade sensitivity, whether they can't eat strawberries, whether they have anaphylactic reactions to watermelon. So a lot of people have to change their diet, and our goal is not so much to try to get people eating those things. There's plenty of other options that we can use. But if the intolerance is something different, kind of upsets their stomach a little bit, yeah, maybe it's food combinations or other things that we need to work with. Yeah.
I've never heard about nightshades. I've been around. I was thinking about something to cover your eyes with.
No.
But is it literally a group of foods that are called
Vegetables.
Nightshades? Vegetables.
Nightshades, yeah.
And then they mentioned also being allergic to soy products.
Yes.
Well, there are many other plant-based products besides soy that you can use. I mean, there are multitudes of other legumes, chickpeas, pinto beans, black beans, lentils, peas, navy beans, red beans, kidney beans. There's multitudes of other legumes that can be used instead of soy. So even though you may have to be a little more careful to avoid those things if you're truly allergic to them, there's still a lot of other options
A lot of other options.
Yeah, you can make
Before
a
you go
nice
to the next question, let's
Go
go
ahead.
to let's go to the
Let's go
next
ahead.
week, because we keep talking about fasting. I want you to bring in week 2 and talk about the other kind of fast that we talked about. My wife alluded to it, but you said that's coming up.
Yes.
Which one? The
So we
fried-
talk about the
oh,
fasting
fried-
so week 2, actually, if you look at the full outline,
Yes.
we give people a number of different options. So we have some of these things that we say are more true fasts, and other things that we talk about fasting from negativity. We talk about fasting from isolation. We talk about fasting from overwork. Okay? And all these things, if you look at them, they have biblical basis, right? So whether you look at the church, whether you look at community. And so what we're finding when we talk, let's talk about that one, about fasting from isolation. We're doing a virtual program. It's online. So people, I mean, you don't need to have anyone. You don't need to see anyone when you go through this Fast Aid program. But we're going to challenge people to still engage with someone, whether it's someone in your home, someone at your workplace. Don't go through the program alone. If you go through a program with someone else, it increases the likelihood that you will be successful. And we've seen this with so many programs over the years. Very compelling data. If you're trying to help other people as well as yourself, it increases dramatically your likelihood of success.
Oh, nice.
I like that.
That's right.
What about exercising also? Would that help?
Yes, and that's actually one of the things we mentioned there too, fasting from inactivity.
There
Just
we go.
another way of saying getting some exercise. And that is a very helpful thing as well. And again, with, we're not telling you to go out and start training for a marathon.
Right.
And if people have certain medical issues, maybe they have heart disease or they have high blood pressure or diabetes and they're overweight, so they may have heart disease whether they know it or not. We always recommend checking with your doctor before you start going on any kind of really, any exercise program, just to be safe. But if you're up and able to walk around and move, just walk some, walk a little more, do a little extra. And maybe that only means walking to your mailbox and back. If you're not doing anything, if you're sitting on the couch all day, get up and just do something.
Yes.
And that can be gradually increased as you're...
I like that. So go ahead.
Like the person that said that they don't eat any fruits, and rarely do they eat any vegetables. They need to start eating
them.
Right?
Yep,
That
start
would be the
eating them.
goal. And again, we're doing it gradually. So we're not telling someone,
true.
here's a program you
Gradually,
can't stick
yeah.
with. With the exercise, Sonia was kind of giving me a hard time about this, because one of the things we have in the handout is we say the idea is to have the hurdles low enough so that you can be sure to clear them.
True.
But at the same point, the lower the hurdles are, the less
challenging.
you're going to accomplish too, okay? So
Yeah,
we recognize
if you
both.
only take one bite of celery, and count that for all of your vegetables, and if you only, walk across the room to your kitchen and you count that as your exercise, you know what I'm saying? If you're not doing much, you're not going to get as much out of it, obviously. So the goal is to start making changes to head in that direction.
But the specific thing that Sonia was giving me a hard time with is one of the exercise options we said is we give several things in the handout. People can download it and get it. But one of them was just taking a minute, an hour, to get up and do something. So if getting on a regular exercise program, if that sounds too big, just don't sit in one place for more than 60 minutes. At the, when we have the break on 3ABN, they're going to get up, okay? They're not going to just sit there. At the commercial break, if they're going to watch TV all day. Now, that's not the ideal weight loss program, granted, but at least they're going to get up 1 minute of every hour. And people say, again, this is small, but these are sustainable things for many people that they can do, and these things can be additive over time.
You were just saying.
Yeah, we have the Apple Watch and smartwatch, and it says time to stand.
Time to stand.
There you go.
And
Every hour.
And sometimes at night we have this circle that kind of measures our activity during the day. And there are some days that I'm just so concentrating on writing, so concentrating on typing. And my watch will send me a signal, you can still do it if you start now. It sets goals because I put a profile together as to how many steps I want to do a day. I want to get more exercise. And it reminds me. And then, my wife will say, I did, how many steps? I did 15,000 steps today. I remember when we were at a electronic convention in Las Vegas, and I thought, I'm at the convention center. I could see the hotel from me. I'm just going to go ahead and walk. I had no idea at the end of the day when I looked at my watch and said, you walked 13 miles today. The next day I felt it because there was so much as you're walking down this major boulevard, this stuff all around you. I keep saying, well, I could see it. It can't be too far away. And I can still see it. Somebody said to me, you actually walked that far? Do you realize that the hotel you were at was at the end of the strip? How many miles did you walk? And I said to my wife, I'm in the tub soaking. I am sore everywhere. So we're not talking about getting extreme.
Right.
I like that. But I like what you said about don't make the hurdle too low because you don't want one bite of celery and say, hey, I accomplished it today.
Right. But you said a little spoonful of spinach, huh? To start. That was good.
Well, if someone is not eating anything, that's a place to start. And if we habitually start eating something, we tend to learn to like it. We actually like what we eat rather than eating what we like. And so it helps you to learn to like healthier things if you just choose to eat it regularly. And even if it's just a little bit every day, after a while, you can develop a taste for it.
I always have vegetable with a meal.
Every meal we have vegetable.
What?
We didn't have any tonight.
No, we had the black beans and rice.
Well, okay. That's good. Black beans.
Yeah. Normally I do.
All right, let's go to the third week.
Okay,
let's go to the
that.
next question. This one says fast from caloric
I like
beverages.
That one.
Oh.
That's a huge one for a lot of people. If you walk down most grocery stores have a whole aisle, both sides, dedicated to soft drinks and sugary, all this stuff that's just,
fructose.
It's terrible for your health. I mean, it's loaded with high fructose corn syrup, which is like the worst sweetener you can get for your health. Artificial colors, artificial sweeteners, or real, like I said, the high fructose corn syrup. So unhealthy and loaded with calories. And they say even the ones that have 0 calories. Those affect the studies show that those affect your blood sugar levels, just like the others do for diabetes. It has weird effects on your body. But in fact, we had a patient, you had a patient that was quite overweight. This was years ago now, I remember. And he was drinking a lot of soda. And he decided to, probably as a result of you talking to him, he decided to quit drinking sodas. And he came, this was several months later, he came back. He had lost 70 pounds just from stopping drinking soda. Obviously, he must have been drinking a lot of it.
A lot, yeah.
But it adds up to a huge amount of calories.
So let me clarify something. So you help me if I'm understanding what you're saying. When you made that point about blood sugar and artificially sweetened beverages. So I think what she's referring to is, yes, you take that artificially sweetened beverage, that itself is not going to raise your blood sugar.
No.
But if you look at cumulative, like hemoglobin A1C, the average blood sugar, what a lot of at least some of the research is suggesting that we compensate for that. You don't eat less because you had that 0-calorie beverage, you may actually, in some of the research, you may actually even eat more. So if you look at cumulative measures of blood sugar, it's not like
Right.
that beverage helped you. So it's
Right.
not so much that itself at the moment raised your sugar. Is that the point you were making?
so.
Okay.
I see.
It's a contributor,
Yes.
not the sole reason.
And the other thing that it's, if you're drinking anything with calories between meals, it's causing your stomach to have to process that. So it's like eating between meals.
What about going to bed
So-
late? I mean, eat before you go to bed. That's one of the worst things you could do.
That's another practice that's not good for your health
Yeah.
for several reasons. Eating between meals, of course, affects your digestive system negatively. And eating shortly before you go to bed affects it negatively, because then it's having to digest and work. Your intestinal system and stomach is having to work while you're trying to sleep, and it's not getting to rest. So it's interfering with your quality of sleep, and it can't rest at all. And also, if you're snacking between meals, whether it's liquid, beverages, or whether it's, snacking on other foods, it interferes with the health of the digestive system. Also, there's something called the migrating motor complex, which is kind of like a housekeeping health maintenance system that your gut goes through daily, but it can't do that unless you have a long enough gap between meals where you're not consuming anything besides water, that it's finished digesting everything, and then it can do this housekeeping mechanism, part of which includes a reverse peristalsis, where it's flushing alkaline fluids back up into your stomach to give it a break from the acid, so decreasing risk of gastritis and ulcers and everything. It just is something that helps to keep your gut healthier. It can't do that if you're eating between meals.
I have never heard of that.
Well, it's
that
fascinating.
is so insightful. That is amazing. That's like, let's just put it in a practical sense for those of us who are not quick at processing, but the pictures is amazing. Okay, just think about it this way. You spend all day washing your car, but you never rinse it. So it'll never dry. So the washing the car all day is you're eating all day. And then the rinsing it is you're just pouring water on it, but you just keep, you haven't stopped. You're just rinsing it. You've gone from 7 hours of washing it to 5 more hours of just rinsing it, and you haven't stopped. And you decide, I'm just exhausted now, so your body is not, during the night, you've drank something before you went to bed, you ate something before you went to bed, and before that even finishes, you're up in the morning for breakfast, and you send another regimen down there, and it didn't get a chance to re-alkaline the body and prepare it for what's coming next, and just give it a chance to rest. Because we don't think about it. I just, I got a little corporate here, but let me just point out something. So while I'm sleeping, if I ate something late, while I'm sleeping, I may be trying to sleep physically, but my stomach says, I'd like to sleep too.
Exactly.
And it's not as efficient. Your digestion isn't as efficient. So that break between meals, when that migrating motor complex kicks in, doesn't seem to kick in well at night. And then the other thing that's a huge epidemic problem in the United States and throughout the world is problems with reflux, heartburn. Some people have symptoms of the actual burning.
Have that acid reflux.
Other people are getting complications from it, irritating their airways or their upper, oral pharynx, where you swallow and all. And really, part of the problem is eating late at night and then laying down. So there's all kinds of things. Digestive physiology is undermined by many of these practices. So really, the things that we're talking about, we don't just call it a weight, this is not a weight loss program. The Fast 8 is a weight and health optimization program. So even people that are thin can benefit from these principles. We promise to tell people some pointers on how to gain weight if they're underweight. And that may include not eating a whole serving of leaf, stem, and flower vegetables at the beginning of the meal. That is so powerful in helping trim down someone who's underweight. We don't want them eating a huge bowl of just green salad when they need to, be getting
protein in there.
Yeah, they need some more calories if they're trying to gain weight. So sometimes we flip the things if someone's struggling with weight gain.
Okay.
I've learned a lot of things tonight,
I'm enjoying
including
this.
nightshade food. I never heard that before. Thank you for that question.
Well, here's
So,
another question. What about the keto diet? plan. I see a lot of friends of mine jumping on, and they are losing a lot of weight and seem to be doing well. Is this a safe program?
Yeah,
Keto.
Keto diets have been popular
Yeah.
over the years. And it's true, many people will lose weight on it initially, oftentimes. A lot of times diabetics like to do it because on a keto diet, you tend to not, your blood sugar levels tend to stay lower because it's more protein and fat instead of carbohydrates. But most people will not stay on a keto diet long term. They can't typically, because for one thing, people tend to become depressed on a keto diet.
Yeah.
Your body's, your brain's preferred food is carbohydrate. And so eating a high protein, high fat diet is not a healthy, and it's just not healthy for your body. For instance, even for diabetics, even though in the short term, your blood sugar levels are not being raised as much because you're eating more protein and fat instead of the carbohydrates, which tend to, make your sugar higher in the short term. The especially when, because most people that are going on a keto diet are getting their protein and fat from animal products, which are even more unhealthy for you. And the saturated fat in those animal products makes the diabetes worse over the long term because it's saturated fat is actually the root cause of diabetes because it's worsening insulin resistance and making your body less able to respond to, we could go through the whole process. I don't know if we have time to discuss that or not, but it actually makes you more insulin resistant, which worsens your diabetes over the long haul.
Oh, no.
And so so we don't recommend a keto diet in general.
Right.
There may be certain situations where it may be necessary. For instance, there's sometimes people who have a severe seizure disorder, children sometimes, they do better on a keto diet, and there are ways to do a plant-based keto diet, which in that case we would definitely recommend a plant-based keto diet. But by and large, especially as a weight loss mechanism, no, there are much healthier ways to do it.
Wow.
Okay.
This is really good. The questions are coming in.
Yeah. Here's an interesting one. I could relate. Why is it when you have been overweight and you lose weight, you still view yourself as a fat person? Mary from Washington.
Well, a lot of it comes back to this whole dynamic that we've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
And that is, so we have this stigmatization, this shaming, this blaming. We have these artificial ideas of what an optimal weight is.
Right.
And it may not be realistic based on someone's early life history, on the intrauterine environment, their genetic environment. So here's what we're trying to help people to realize. We're looking at an endpoint of health. We're looking at an endpoint of helping people achieve the kind of goals they have, being vibrant Christians, being able to hear the Holy Spirit, discern the Spirit's voice, all these practical outcomes, and maybe you're not going to be as thin as your neighbor or your spouse or your sister or your brother. And that's because you're different. There's interesting research we were looking at just not long ago, my wife and I, where they looked at siblings. So brothers and sisters who were same parents, same genetic background, but the mother was experiencing something different than her pregnancy. Specifically, she had gestational diabetes with one of the pregnancies, and very different outcomes in the kids. The kids who were the products of those pregnancies when there was gestational diabetes tended to be much heavier than their siblings. And you can't change some of those factors. So what I tell people, they say, what's an ideal weight for me? I say an ideal weight is when you are on an ideal lifestyle. That's what your weight will equilibrate at. And then the response is, well, who can be on an ideal lifestyle? Well, then I say your best weight is when you're at the best lifestyle that you can embrace right now.
Yeah.
And looking at it practically instead of some, artificial thing.
That's true, because some of these artificial things, whether you adopt a diet program or prepackaged foods or keto or whatever it may be for, they say do this for 30 days or for the 45-day challenge or whatever the case may be, you tend to think that's not going to be the way I'm going to be sustained for the rest of my life. Somewhere along the way I'm going to go to a party and they're going to say, hey, have a plate of food. Well, it's not a part of my keto diet, or it's not a part of my program. And then all of a sudden you realize, I'm in a lifestyle, I'm in a practice that I can't sustain because I live in a real world.
Yeah.
So you have to start optimizing yourself based on some of the
Or
things.
eating packaged foods and all.
Prepackaged foods.
Right,
It's
right.
like, anyway, it's like prepackaged, the difference between a real potato and potato chips.
There you go.
Exactly.
Right, the more natural, the better. But I like the fact that you're pointing, and I want to reiterate this. Don't think of yourself as beyond help. I love the fact that you're making this program hurdle friendly,
You got
but
it.
not inactive.
Exactly.
I love that.
I like that.
So let's go to the next one. Week 4.
Fast, did we do 4 or 4?
Fast from addictive substances, including problem foods. Consider fasting from high sugar and high sodium foods. Okay.
Yeah, tell us about that one.
Okay, so
Addictive.
it's interesting. In fact, I just saw I read an article the other day on Medscape. The title was something to the effect of, in this study, they found that sugary foods, highly processed foods are as addictive as tobacco.
Ooh.
I'm like, whoa, that's interesting. But many people have addictive relationships with food.
Yeah.
And it may be different foods for different people, but usually they're foods like ice cream, chocolate, potato chips, some kind of chips, or sweet sugary things. You never hear of anyone being addicted to broccoli or, kale greens or something. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're
You know,
not.
my good friend, Pastor Doug Battery, he said, you never hear anybody say, I need a carrot. Nobody having I need a carrot.
No.
Nobody having a carrot addiction
Yes.
that they have to really keep maintaining.
Yeah,
And it's so true.
And again, with the reason being making a fast from these things, a clean break from them. We've talked about this many times in other programs. If there's a food or a substance that is especially a problem for you, if someone says, oh, they just have to have this, whatever it is, chocolate or ice cream or whatever, they just have to have that every day. Or if they get it and they say, oh, I'm just going to have a scoop, and next thing you know, the whole container is gone. Or they buy a bag of, one of the family-sized bag of chips, and I'll just have 5 or 6, and a couple hours later the bag is empty. That is a problem food for you. And because you're not able to control your consumption of it.
Yeah.
And so most people just say, oh, well then just moderation, just cut down. But if you have an addictive relationship with a food, you can't just cut down.
That's right.
Wow.
And so there's much more power in clean breaks. If it's an actually addictive substance for you, whether a food or whatever, it's much more powerful to just say, okay, I am not going to buy that anymore. I'm not going to eat that anymore. Because if you just cut down, you say, okay, I can have it once a week. Well, isn't that a lot better than eating it 5 times a day? Sure.
Like you go from a family size to like a 2 people size, and then a 1 bag of chip. Let me tell you, the reason I'm identifying with you is because I know that my problem food is chips.
Confess.
Barbecue chips, and I've talked about this on the air, but you've just given me the answer.
Cold turkey.
Let me just tell you why this is so relevant to me, because I've said, and this has been kind of like my whole thing for the year, the most powerful question you could ask a person is, do you want to? As Jesus asked the man at the pool, had been there for 38 years. He was in a condition for 38 years and didn't think there was any answer, but the Lord said, do you want to?
Yes.
And he didn't say, I'll do it for you, or I'll make you whole. He said, do you want to? And what I'm hearing you guys say tonight to me is you're preaching my sermon to me. Do I want to? Do I want to give up those addictive foods like barbecue chips, honestly?
And that's actually the most compassionate thing.
That's so
because
nice.
really, you torture yourself when you do this cutting back.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're telling yourself, this is so desirable, but I can't have it. Okay? I really love chocolate, but I can't eat it this much because I have a weight problem or diabetes or whatever.
Right.
And instead of making it less intense, it makes the desire greater. So you live a whole life of denial, and people throw in the towel. If you say, I'm choosing to make a break with this, I'm going to get rid of those chips, and I'm going to develop new enjoyments, that is really where the power is. Now, we don't make anyone give anything up, but we're saying you be insightful And from a Christian standpoint, I say ask the Holy Spirit, ask God. If there's something you need to make a break with, walk away from it, and God will give you the victory.
That's right. And I've been telling this, I've been preaching this, you've heard me, honey.
Yeah.
Do you want to? Do
you want to? That's
Do
your
you want
theme
to?
for the
Stop
year, isn't
blaming
it?
other people for an action that you need to take. Do you want to? Yes, I do want to. And I think that's what's contributing to my little water retention, because isn't high sodium foods helps you retain more water?
Sure. And you know, when you mentioned chips, it reminds me of what a friend of ours who ran a vegetarian restaurant and health food programs and everything. She was telling me about someone who she had gotten acquainted with and was coming to her programs and things. And he was a scientist who worked for one of the famous, very popular chip companies. And he was getting a six-figure income. This was many years ago. Six-figure income. And you know what his job was? Was to develop chemicals to put in those chips so that you can't only eat one.
Oh, I've heard that
And
before.
he finally said, this is unethical. And he walked away from his job. He quit his job because he said, I can't do this anymore, because they actually put chemicals in there to make you crave more.
I know, I know, that's what's
And
happening.
so, it's pretty interesting. It's, anyway.
Wow, that's it.
So the clean breaks, like he's talking about, is so much more powerful, because then you are free to enjoy other habits. Just like you can't tell an alcoholic, well, just have one
Right.
glass of wine
no,
at dinner.
no.
Or someone who's trying to quit smoking and they've quit, oh, you can just have one cigarette. It doesn't work that way.
No, you're right.
It doesn't work. And it doesn't work that way with problem foods either.
Wow. I need to have you on my Do You Want To tour. Okay.
Do you
What's the
want
next
to?
question we had?
You want to read this?
Oh man, this is terrible, but she's throwing it at me right here on,
I've
on
been skinny.
national television. I have been skinny all my life. I was teased and thoroughly rejected by all my classmates from elementary school through academy. Wasn't allowed to join others on the playground because I was too tall and bony. Now I'm 82 and 5 feet 10 and weigh 107 pounds.
Wow.
I can't gain to save me.
I'm
just skin and bones.
Please help.
Wow.
82.
Yeah, I mean, it gets more challenging as we get older, too.
Yeah.
And ironically, one of the interesting there are some things that tend to normalize weight.
10.
Exercise is actually one of them. People that are not getting enough exercise, it can actually help them to build muscle mass, people that are thinner. So it has that role. But also an interesting food that actually has one of these weight normalizing functions are nuts. So people that are underweight, we encourage them to use more high caloric plant foods, and nuts and seeds would be among those. But if you actually look at the research on the general population, which tends to be overweight, actually eating more nuts is associated with losing weight. So nuts is one of these interesting foods that we can eat too much of them, sure, but adding nuts to the diet generally is beneficial both for underweight people and for overweight people.
Wow.
Yeah. So
But not nuts with a lot of salt.
no, we're not recommending the cocktail mix that's fried and with all the salt, but the whole nuts are really excellent.
Raw
Excellent
Trader
foods.
Joe's.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Okay, raw. Not
Raw or roasted, yes, but without the oil, extra oil and salt.
Pistachios?
Pistachios can be very good, but oftentimes they give you a lot of sodium, depending on
Well,
where
if
you're
they're
getting
salted,
it from.
you
Most of
can
are
get them
salted.
unsalted
I
as
usually
well.
get
I need to-
unsalted.
Yeah, we need to do
Yeah,
because
and unsalted, sure, they're excellent as well.
pistachios are really nice.
They are very nice.
It's a nice nut.
Wow.
What else do we have?
This one here, how many hours, this is interesting, how many hours should the last meal be before I go to bed? The time frame between meals. Teresa from Washington.
So there's several things that we might mention in relation to that. If someone is trying to lose weight, the longer it is before you go to bed, in other words, the earlier in the afternoon you eat your last meal of the day, the better.
Yeah.
Because in the morning, our bodies are geared hormonally to burn the calories we eat as energy. In the afternoon and evening, it's geared hormonally to store those calories as fat. So you eat the same number of calories per day, but if you eat the majority of them in the later afternoon and evening, you will tend to gain weight, whereas if you ate it in the morning instead, you would tend to lose weight.
Eat like a king.
So if you're trying to lose weight, that's, in fact, that's one of the other principles in week, what is it, 5? Yeah. To fast after 3 p.m. So if you eat all your calories before 3 p.m., that is a big factor in helping to lose weight. As far as if someone is not, you know, and if they're not trying to lose weight, but even so, it's better if you can have it 5 or 6 hours before bed because, again, with gastric reflux and heartburn and all, it's better if all that food is digested before you lay down. And you can sleep better as well.
You'll recall that we have this fast from caloric beverages. We're talking about meal timing. But let's bring it back to those who are trying to gain weight, like the viewer who called in.
Right.
And what we'll do in those situations, sometimes I've had patients trouble gaining weight. We don't want to add another meal, so we'll have them add whole fruit or vegetable juices a half an hour before their meals. Because what happens when you drink calories, they give you much more calorie than they do satisfaction compared to whole foods. So most of us, we want to be eating our foods whole. But if someone's trying to gain weight, we'll say, make that fresh juice or have that natural juice a half an hour before the meal. That'll give you more calories. And then you're going to eat a half an hour later, but you usually will not fully compensate. In other words, you'll eat more calories cumulatively. You'll ingest more calories with that addition of the juice. Same in the evenings. We usually won't use the juice, but we'll say something easily digestible, maybe 5 o'clock or something, 3-4 hours before bed. If someone's trying to gain weight, maybe just fruit and one of the classic ones is a cracker like Zwieback. That was famous years ago, the Melba type toast. Those things. So those things can be very good in the evening for someone who's trying to gain weight, or a child or a young adult who has a high metabolism and trying to keep their caloric intake up.
So bread.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Got some more questions here. No,
okay.
This one.
This one's interesting. I'm in my mid-70s and having a terrible time controlling my sweet intake. I feel like I'm getting all my energy from sweets. Barbara from Oklahoma. What could you do to help Barbara control this?
Well, I think part of it comes back to Sonia's point.
Yes.
So if Barbara, the Bible actually talks about this. We have, some of the scriptures in Proverbs where it speaks about honey. And it doesn't say you can't eat honey.
Right.
Okay? It speaks about temperance in the, even in the sweet things, okay? And so here's my point. We're not telling people they have to give up all their sweets. We would say a better way to satisfy your sweet tooth is with fruit. But if you can identify, if Barbara can identify some sweets that are especially problems for her, like Sonia mentioned, if it's ice cream, maybe she needs to walk away from the ice cream. If it's a certain type of candy bar, maybe she needs to walk away from that candy bar. Doesn't mean she has to avoid all high sugar foods. Now, I will tell you my experience, because I used to have a problem with these sugary foods. And I got to the point as a young adult where I was under conviction, and I may have told you this story before, but I couldn't go to sleep at night unless I had, some kind of ice cream or cake or something. So the Lord just impressed me. I had to make a clean break with all that stuff. And at first it's very difficult, but after a while your tastes change. And today I'm going to go to bed tonight. I'm not going to be looking for cake or ice cream. I don't eat that stuff anymore, and I don't miss it because my tastes have changed. I walked away from it, and the Lord helped me develop new enjoyments. So this is what we tell people. Doesn't mean they got to walk away from everything. They can identify some specific things that will go a long way to making the successful change.
I love that, because the body is a trainable instrument.
It really is.
It is a trainable instrument. So one of the lies we tell ourselves is you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, that's not the case. You can.
That's right.
Because we're not dogs, we're human beings. The reality of it is we're human, and we have been given this capacity to think and to, we've said it to people that come to the church. Hey, I just became a Christian. I'm 60 years old. Well, you can't be a Christian. You've been a sinner too long. Do we say that?
No, we don't.
No, we don't say that. So why should we apply that to the lifestyle change?
Great illustration.
I like that.
No, I'm sorry. How long you smoke? 35 years. Well, you passed the threshold of forgiveness, so it doesn't work. We don't say that in the spiritual things of life.
right.
So why do we say, you know, you've eaten this way all your life, there's no chance that you could change your habits? No, that's right. I choose to replace my barbecue chips with celery and carrots.
Wonderful.
And I'm going to train my taste buds because honestly, what you said tonight about the chemicals in there, that's why this very well-known chip company says, I bet you can't eat just one.
One, yeah.
Because they made it so that, ooh, wow, try another one. And honestly, before you know it, and I'll just kind of confess here, we like the big chips. When a bag of chips starts, when you start seeing the small pieces, you can't find a chip that you could relate to. When they start shrinking in size, you realize I've eaten too many. And sometimes I just get a bag of chips and now you just don't know it because you've trained your left hand, kind of like a smoker, you've trained your left hand to reach in the bag and find the big chips. And when you realize there are no more big chips, you think, did I eat all that?
Yes, you did.
And honestly, that's where my victory needs to come from.
Amen.
Thank you for that. Honey,
Oh, boy.
we got some
True.
questions here.
Oh, listen to this. This is for both of you. I have a problem with too much urination. I'm 5'3", 110 pounds. I eat 2 vegan meals a day. Drink water between meals, about 37 to 38 ounces a day, which I consider the right amount of water for someone as small as me. I try to drink that amount of water throughout the day, hours before bedtime, but the urination problem happens through the day and the night. I am 79 years old and would like for Dr. DeRose and his wife to share some light in this situation. I'm pretty healthy. I praise the Lord for that. I also exercise all the time. Then why do I have this problem? Thank you for helping.
Okay. Well, I praise the Lord too for good health throughout life. And, you know, for this sister,
Yes,
and
yes.
same for us. I'll say several things, you know, about voiding.
Yeah,
So, different people have different capacities of their bladder,
true.
and the other interesting dynamic that a lot of people don't realize is when we lay down. I mean, all of us tend to have some fluid retention. I mean, it may not be discernible, but when we're walking around, we have more fluid in our legs and in our feet.
Yeah.
Some people, it's really exaggerated. You press on their legs and it leaves a pit. We call that pitting edema.
Yes.
When you lay down at night, that water mobilizes. Okay? So now gravity isn't bringing the water into your legs. That water now mobilizes and goes to your heart and your kidneys, and you're going to get up and you're going to urinate more. So someone may say, I'm not drinking much, but why do I get up at night and urinate more?
Oh.
So I know this person, you know, may not have much of an issue with that.
Right.
But the point is, different people, it's different. The encouraging thing to me is even for someone who is to drink a lot of water and wake up maybe several times at night
Right.
because they're drinking so much, we typically wake up, we're in a lighter stage of sleep, and we find people, even if they wake up and have to use the bathroom, if they fall right back to sleep, this doesn't seem to be deleterious as far as their sleep. We sleep in cycles, and you tend to wake up when you're in that lower stage sleep, you use the facilities, you go back to bed. I would say, and I'm not saying this as a pun, but I would say don't lose any sleep over it.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
You know,
That's a
just
good one.
live with that.
Yeah.
Because of bladder capacity or other things mobilizing fluids, we don't have to treat things just because we wish it were different or someone else, our next door neighbor says, well, I don't do that. You should be able to sleep through the whole night. No, don't worry about it. If you're feeling healthy, you're getting the rest you need, don't worry if you get up a couple times and you have to use the
Right.
bathroom.
It's okay.
That's
yeah.
good.
And if there are other health issues,
Yes.
like a lot of older women deal with leakage problems, especially if they've had children.
Bladder.
And so that can play into it also. And if that's a real problem for someone, I would encourage them to go see their doctor because there are treatments available that can actually help significantly with that. So that would be something to, to explore if that's a problem as well. Because you don't want to quit drinking water because of needing to urinate.
True.
And when she mentioned the amount of water, and I don't know how much she weighs, but just to,
105, I think.
did she say 105? Did I
110,
miss that?
110.
Okay.
110.
So she's pretty close on the water. But a good rule of thumb for the amount of water that most people, just for a general healthy person to drink is you take your weight in pounds, cut it in half, and that's the minimum number of ounces that you should be consuming a day. And then if you're perspiring a lot, working out, you would add more. So if someone weighs 100 pounds, you know, at least 50 ounces a day as a minimum baseline.
A lot of water.
And then adding more to that if you're, you know, doing other perspiring.
But if you don't like to drink water, put lemon in it. I've done that. Squeeze a little lemon, and it helped. It actually helps. When some people put fruit, put different various
fruit or vegetable infused water.
Infused water.
If they don't like the taste of the water. And now for me, I just like to get filtered water.
Yes.
That's you know that has a good taste. Drinking from the tap is not.
No.
You know, not an appealing option to anyone.
No.
Especially where you live. Sometimes you get oil.
Depends on where you live. True. There are certain places like up in, I think it may have been Lake Tahoe. I don't know. There's some places up in the mountains where the water is just delicious, straight out of the, you know, the wells or whatever.
Yeah.
But for most people
Most people don't live
city
in it.
tap water is not healthy or appealing. I mean, it's not.
Right.
You know,
Well water sometimes, or you might live in a place where you might get a boiling notice. Sometimes we get all
definitely want to get that
beeping.
checked.
Don't drink the
get
water
those.
until
We
you
get
issue
that.
a boil water notice. A pipe broke today in construction.
Yeah.
And, you know, it gets brown in the shower. But that's good. I like that rule of thumb. Your weight divided by 2 should be...
Now, if someone is 500 pounds, you don't do that. That would be a bit, you know, it's
That's a good
closer to your ideal, you know, your
More like the
average
ideal
weight,
weight.
average weight or ideal. Yeah, not, you know,
Right.
not an extreme.
Yeah, and if they have heart or kidney problems, of course. that's gonna
Exactly.
change.
Right.
That's interesting. Let's go to, now we're on week 6, 10-day Daniel fast. I think you talked about that already. And let's
Yeah, we
let's
did.
go to 7. Well, I noticed week 6 and week 7, 10-day Daniel fast
that
continues through the end.
Well,
of
think
week-
about it. It's 10 days. So if you start,
You're right.
start at week 6, it's got to go into
That
week
makes
7,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Let's do a 10-day diet in 7 days.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we tried to squeeze it into a week, but we couldn't figure out how to get those 10 days into
I
7.
know.
I like that. I like that. 10-day diet in 7. And you also included optional Daniel's no unclean foods or the Acts 15 kosher or bloodless diet.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's really
for those that
interesting.
eat meat.
No, it is really interesting, and we were just looking at this. I mean, it's staggering. I mean, most people don't realize this, but you know, you may have heard of some of these parasitic diseases that are largely cured by unclean animals. The one a lot of people have heard about is trichinosis.
Oh, yeah.
And I think data I was looking at recently, you know, maybe 50,000 people a year with trichinosis. But right now the estimate is that there are 50 million people on planet Earth that are infected with something called cysticercosis. It is the pork tapeworm. It is a leading cause of epilepsy worldwide. If we had eliminated pigs from you know, human environment, you know,
Consumption.
consumption, and we're not raising pigs, we could eliminate this major cause of epilepsy. It's millions of people. And so we look at the, you know, some people look at the Bible and say, oh, that's just old stuff,
Right.
the people in
Yeah.
the wilderness, and
Yeah.
now we've got hygiene. No, these are still cutting edge problems. And really, to avoid these foods, all of these foods that are excluded are foods that tend to be associated with weight gain as well as poor health.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
That is really interesting because I've talked about that years ago when we do the health seminars or even in Revelation seminars, we talk about the trichina larva.
Yeah.
That just
In the
is
pig.
hard to kill it. But nowadays, so many restaurants, if you look, okay, here's a rule of thumb. If you're getting a sandwich and the word club is in it, that means bacon.
Bacon.
That's almost a given. If you have like club sandwich or, you know, lettuce, tomatoes, club sandwich, it's bacon. It's like they put bacon in everything.
And everything.
And the word club is the key word.
Oh,
Okay, thanks for
interesting.
the heads
I didn't
up.
know that.
Yeah. Club. Yeah. Here's another question for you. What would cause a young female, 28 years old, to eat 12 to 28 pounds of ice per week? If she were to get her iron levels up, would that help? Gloria from Illinois.
There is an interesting connection. We call it pica.
Oh.
Sometimes people have unusual cravings
Yeah.
if they have deficiencies, and iron is one of those deficiencies that can sometimes, you know, manifest, you know, in unusual ways. So definitely, if we know someone has an underlying disease or underlying condition, treat that condition.
To get it checked out,
Yeah.
find out what's going on, and then they can.
Yeah, ice. I
address
used to
it.
do that, scrape the ice when refrigerators used to have ice in there. I used to scrape the ice and eat it.
Yeah, I saw you do that when
Remember
we used to be
years
dating.
ago?
I said, why do you just like the way it tastes?
The taste.
It's a freezer ice. And I think,
Yeah.
just why not regular ice tray ice? No, I like the way that it tastes.
No.
But that may be a factor because I know somebody that did that. And now we're down to week 8.
Yeah,
Okay, let's talk about
graduation.
Graduation, the final
Yeah.
goal. Setting, you choose which elements of the fast you will continue for the final week and beyond.
Oh,
And I like the way you, Dr. Sonja, you pointed that out earlier.
yeah.
The small changes, you might carry one of them, or you might say, wait, I could do that one too. Read
And then after you've incorporated those so they become a part of your lifestyle, then think about, go back to that, refresh your memories on that and say, hey, maybe I could add something else that helps you to continue reaching that goal in a more sustainable
Wow.
way.
And we want to remind, could you put that graphic up again? I want to
Oh,
remind our
yes.
viewers, they may have missed it the first hour. I'm going to put that graphic
There
up
it
there.
is.
TimelessHealingInsights.org. Go there, sign up for the free program that we've talked about, the free program handouts, free virtual program support beginning February 4, 2023. Talk about that virtual program support.
Sure. So, and one thing about the website, occasionally we'll find people, they say their browser didn't work. We find if they put the www dot in front of the timelesshealinginsights.org, sometimes that's the secret.
Okay.
But let's talk about the virtual support. Saturday night, this coming Saturday, 7 p.m., we're going to have a live session. So I will be there.
Is that
I'll be
Central?
That is Eastern
Eastern.
time.
Okay.
So 7 to
6
8
o'clock.
Eastern. That would be 6 to 7 Central. And you could do the math if you're out west, 4 to 5 Pacific time. And what we're going to be doing is actually it'll be interactive. So we'll have people, opportunity just like tonight. If they had some questions that we didn't get a chance to answer that relate to the program, we can perhaps address them then. So we want people to understand how the program works. We'll spend some special time with the first week goals. We'll speak a lot about some of the motivational things as well as some of the practical things. And then every week at that time for 8 weeks, we will have a session. Sometimes it'll be interactive.
Okay.
Other times it'll be pre-recorded. So we're going to release a new video every Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll be going along with that week in the program. So people can jump on. If they're watching this program 3 months from now or 3 years from now, they can still go to timelesshealinginsights.org to make 100% sure they get to the right place. They can put a slash and the word fast 8. Right now, if you just go to our webpage, it's front and center.
Yeah, it's right there.
But 3 years from now, it may not be. Slash fast 8 after www.timelesshealinginsights.org
/fast.
/fast 8. That'll take you right to the sign-up page and right to where all the videos and things will be housed. But we're really excited about it. We're looking forward to people going on that journey with us.
Is it a Zoom or what is it?
Yeah, so basically we're using the Zoom platform as well as YouTube. We haven't decided whether we're going to let people interact on Zoom or just use the chat functions.
Okay.
And just have some of the guests. We are planning to have guests. We've got some, this Dr. Lillis that we mentioned. We've got some video interview components from him that we'll be sharing on Saturday night, as well as some testimonials, other people who've been successful. So it's
I
gonna be,
love
yeah,
that
it's going to be a lot of good features.
Encouraging.
Yeah.
And by the way, at that very same website, timelesshealinginsights.org, you can get the information that you need to get in touch with Dr. DeRose and Sonja DeRose,
Yeah.
both of them, because we're just kind of encapsulating tonight
True.
some things that I've learned more tonight than I've learned in a while. I mean, I'm still going over that. What's the kind of group fruit?
Nightshades.
Nightshades? Boy, maybe lampshades and nightshades. They're not the same. But 30 seconds, how would you encourage our audience
Yeah.
to go forward?
There's your camera.
What I would say is, the most important thing is don't give up. If you've been felt like you've been defeated in your attempts to lose weight, this is a program for you. We've designed it for you. God wants to help you be successful. So jump on timelesshealinginsights.org, sign up for the program, and let us assist you on that journey.
Yes. Pick one thing at least to start and go with it.
Wow.
One.
Well, thank you. Wasn't this an enjoyable
Yes,
program?
the Lord wants us to have life abundantly.
Amen.
And we're getting this free advice, and it's time for us to
Yes.
take advantage of it. you know, I'm going to get rid of those chemicals on my potato chips.
All right.
And get me some good old celery and carrots that I think
Sounds
will be
good.
around
I
a
have
lot
some in the
longer.
fridge right now.
Thank you, honey. She's going to see to it. But thank you, R3ABN family, for joining. If
you.
you've just joined us for the first time, remember this network. We are doing all
Yes.
we can to make the gospel functional, social, mental, physical, and spiritual. And we're hoping that you will have life and have it more abundantly.
Abundantly.
Thank you both, Dr. Rose.
Yes,
And
thank
thank you,
you.
honey, for being with us. And thank you, 3ABN family. We look forward to seeing you
God
next time.
bless you.